Well, hello, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Welcome back to our ongoing series on the war in heaven. Now we're going to look at today electronic mind control. There is a war in heaven. I forget which number this is, but you see it there when you started the video. And I encourage you to go back and look at the other videos in this series. Life-changing stuff. We put up a couple of great videos so far today, and I want you to take a look at those too. Very, very interesting, very, very powerful stuff. So let's take a look at electronic mind control. And this is something that more and more we're hearing about, and I'm convinced and even convinced more that it is a reality. So let's take a look at electronic mind control. And electronic mind control works on two different levels, just like religious mind control works. And we talked about religious mind control in our last segment of this series. Now in chapter 12, that our last series, we talked about how religious services put people into altered states of consciousness, light hypnotic trances, and that the thinking and behavior of people in such a trance can be influenced by what they experience through physical senses during the service. So people learn to believe and act on the preacher's words, just like people learn to react to post-hypnotic suggestions during regular hypnosis. And I am a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm also a practitioner of Ericksonian hypnosis. That means I've learned it, I was taught it, and I know the principles of it. You learn a lot of things if you want to try to. You milk a lot of cows if you're trying to make your own butter. So I understand exactly where they're coming from. And they're very correct in saying that electronic mind control, it does the same things, but even to a greater degree. And many people feel, and I'm not sure about this, but it's probably true, electronic mind control can be even more addictive than religious mind control. And like religious mind control, it works on two different levels, one physical and one psychic. So there's two different things going on when you're talking about electronic mind control. Now, there's many, many books in existence that talk about this process, breaking down subliminals in TVs and movies, showing you exactly what's going on. Same thing about popular music, other auditory and visual media. But it does have a psychic component as well. Those are the physical components, but there's also a psychic, an up here, a woo-woo component, if you will. And we have to make sure that we understand what's going on and understand exactly what we're talking about, okay? Now, the strength of, there's this thing called the inverse square law. And what that means is that the strength of a telepathic signal varies inversely with the square of the distance between the transmitter and the receiver. So, bottom line, psychic workings are most efficient when the people or spirits involved are spatially close to one another. Now, this is why it's vital that we understand the astral plane. We're used to thinking of the astral plane as like layers. I mean, here's us, here's the astral plane, and it's way up there. But in actuality, it's all here at the same time. It's just frequencies. That's like a radio station. If I wanted to tune a radio in right now, there's probably 20 or 30 stations I could get sitting right here in this spot. The astral plane's the same way. It's right here. The proximity to us is immediate. It's not on a hill far away. It's right here with you today. And that's something that we need to be able to understand if we're going to really understand this whole thing. And there's something, I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but it certainly bears a study and repeating. It's actually very interesting. And where's the rest of my pictures? Here we go. And this is a religious worship service, believe it or not. And, their hands raised and worshiping and all the lights and stuff. You can tell that is a place of hypnosis. And electronic mind control can be just as effective as this, if not even more so, is what experts are telling us. Now, this is a photograph, an artistic representation of the threads of fate that were that are in Greek mythology. Sorry for that stumbling. These are the threads of fate that talked about in Greek mythology. And what that's talking about is it's Greek myth, and the threads of destiny were woven by the goddesses called the Fates. Now, this author is suggesting that the threads actually exist, but they aren't woven by superhuman beings. They're transmission lines of astral matter that connect one soul to another, and they allow for telepathic communication over greater distances and with greater power than can be accomplished by ordinary broadcast quote-unquote telepathy. These threads are created spontaneously when astral souls come into contact with one another while generating large amounts of psychic energy. Whenever the astral mind is in the correct state of consciousness, generating these threads is just as natural and automatic as the process that spiders use to leave a silk strand between them and where they travel. Are you picking up and understanding what's going on here? So those of you that are using the astral as a playground, those of you that spend a lot of time in the astral, you need to keep this in mind, because you are creating threads of communication between yourself and entities in the astral realm. And just like the NSA, those things can be hijacked and listened into. So you ought to think about that, because it is a reality whether or not you want to believe it or not. You have to understand this. And he talks about broadcasts, how TV broadcasts can work in conjunction with the local congregations of churches to bring people and bring people in from the big evangelist places, and that way the superstar evangelists, they've got their threads set up throughout the whole country and not just in their own congregation. So it's very, very, very interesting. And how the media network is used by TV evangelists isn't the most important electronic mind control. It's what the major media is doing, and he talks about things that you wouldn't even think about. Spectator sports, organized gambling, and communication media services. Very, very interesting. And if you're spending a lot of time in front of a TV, if you're spending a lot of time listening to music, if you're spending a lot of time gambling, if you're spending a lot of time at sports events, you need to learn specific techniques for preventing being taken in. Or you'll have the transmission lines of astral matter implanted in your soul, linking you into this network. Live sports and casino gambling serve the same function as church services in the religious mind control networks. Compulsive gambling on sports, electronic bookmaking, plays the same part as the sin, guilt, forgiveness paradigm in theocratic religion. It's so important to understand this. Lotteries, horse racing, off-track betting, bingo, card parlors. Gambling expands on both the in-person and media levels as churches and TV evangelism decline. The theocrats are shifting their attention to activities more natural to the average opinions and lifestyles of Americans today. So gambling, and this is not to say don't ever go to Las Vegas and gamble, but this is to say if you do, you've got to stay out of the trance. You've got to keep yourself out of the trance, and he talks about very specific ways to do it. Don't drink when you're in the casino. Don't gamble for more than an hour at a time, because you will be drawn into trance. That's what I lived there for 5 years. Those casinos are set up to draw you into trance. Casino gambling in Nevada is one of the most important battlefields in the war between the theocrats, the bad guys, and the invisible college, the good guys, allegedly, in the astral plane. Once theocratic spirits get their control threads on people gambling in casinos, they continue to send telepathic messages into the minds of those people whenever they watch television programs, especially sports events and game shows. And you can see, if you just think about it for 5 seconds, the big linkage between gambling and pro sports. There's huge linkage between gambling and pro sports. There's natural linkage between gambling and game shows. And if you go to Vegas and you get those threads put into you, those connections, and you go back to wherever you go, you're spreading a whole network. So what do you have to do? You have to be cognizant of not going into trance when you're in the casino. And if I were you, after I left Nevada, I would have someone do a cleansing on me or do a cleansing on myself if I were proficient at it. And this is interesting. As a magician working for the Invisible College, I used to go to the Vegas gambling areas to do magical workings to support our side, he said, in this conflict. Now, I already know I shouldn't describe these psychic battles in detail for security reasons, but I want to point out they do occur. And the channeler says it's okay to know about the electronic mental reprogramming networks of the theocrats. Now, this is very interesting. I thought this was super interesting. The Invisible College has its headquarters in Las Vegas, and so do the theocrats. So allegedly, these mind control entities have their headquarters in Las Vegas, which I find absolutely fascinating, because gambling is such a powerful way to get these psychic astral tethers on you and build this connection network. And he says that the theocrats, the bad guys, are mostly hanging out down here on the Strip. And I used to live here. I used to work here, and I'm trying to show you. This is way down there. Yeah. This is the MGM. This is the Paris. This is Planet Hollywood right here. So this is taken before. I worked for and here's Paris. So I worked, this is it right here. I worked for, no, that's Planet Hollywood. But I was right here. We built a Marriott right in here, and it's either not there or you can't see it. I think that's too far back to be the Grand Chateau. But at any rate, I spent a lot of time here, and there is something weird going on down there. You can feel it. You really can. And supposedly, this is the new city center and all that. Supposedly over in here, there's a vortex, too, that's just off the Strip. And that was after I left that I got into all that. So I wasn't really into this when I was in Vegas, but I can remember feeling just some weirdness and some oddness. Just some weirdness. And so, I'm sorry, I'm still looking for trying to place myself here on the Strip. But that might be Grand Chateau. I don't think so. It's too far back. But at any rate, this is where the theocrats supposedly hang out in Nevada. And then the good guys, the Invisible College, allegedly they hang out down here in downtown. Now that's interesting because downtown is much more of a, well, if you're a local, you don't go to the Strip very much unless you're going to see a show. But you might go downtown because it's more laid back. It's more old Vegas. There's still a lot of nonsense going on down there. But downtown Vegas is more of the, it's Vegas light, I guess you could call it. So it's interesting that the Invisible College, who claims to be the good guys in this astral battle, say, oh, we hang out down here in downtown, while the bad guys hang out in glitzy Strip. And I'm noticing the Griffin, which of course is half dragon, half lion. We've been talking about dragons here a lot lately. So that's very interesting to me. Now, here's some good recommendations. If you want to gamble, do it in private games with friends or at local bingo or card clubs if such are legal where you live. Even though these parts of gambling can still plug into electronic mind control, they're a lot less dangerous than the big-time Nevada casinos. Don't get intoxicated or spaced out from fatigue, because they can put you in the same type of trance that people go to in a religious service. They can make you lose more money, and they can also put those tethers, or they can create greater psychic force, and they can put that stuff into you, those connectors. Theocrats love to turn people into compulsive gamblers. It suits their purposes just as well as turning them into Jesus addicts to get their weekly fix of divine forgiveness of sins. Sometimes it's even better. Now, they also work through popular music, big concerts in huge stadiums. Again, even if it's radio or stereo, keep your mind about you. Do not allow yourself to go into trance. And it's hard sometimes to hear the channel messages and song lyrics. And it's hard to pick up the mind control network. So you just have to understand and know and keep yourself out of that school of trance. And you even have to worry about it in your occultic work or in your work of, being around some of your spiritual brethren. You don't want to get yourself into trance. But something that needs to be pointed out, and I'll get beat up about this, but the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, you need to learn some type of shielding. You need to learn some type of protection. And if you do this one right, and again, I'm into knowledge. I'm into spiritual technology. I'm not into, the whole thing, this is bad. No, there's some things that you can use just because they work. And if you are really into the understanding of this, the LBRP, it actually puts you on the throne. You're not really invoking anything. You're creating a situation where you are setting up the powers of your own intention, and you're putting yourself on the throne or in control and setting yourself up for your own protection. So I'll throw that out there for you, even though most of you aren't going to like that, and I'm going to get hollered and yelled at, but that's okay, because I'm here to take the arrows. The pioneers take the arrows. So you need to use some protection. Where have you heard that before? And it's always good advice. But it's too much of a hassle to put it on. It's too much of a hassle. Yeah, but it's a lot less of a hassle than what can happen 9 months later. It's the same thing. I don't want to learn the LBRP. Blah, blah, blah. Well, you can pay me now, or you can pay me later. And there's another form of mind control, and of course we know this. The mainstream media. Print media, electronic media, news media. You just have to learn to keep your wits about you. You need to be careful with your sexual relations. And you just have to become mindful. You just have to become to the place where you are saying, you know what, I am going to think about this. I am going to be mindful. I am going to be careful. I am going to think about all these things, and I am going to know that they can put these threads on me, and I'm just going to make sure that I don't buy into this stuff, and I'm going to make sure that I keep myself in a place where I'm not as subject to this electronic mind control. Can you completely get yourself out of it? Well, I guess if you're completely off the grid. No, I don't have a television. I don't miss it. I still watch some stuff on the internet. But I never allow myself to get into trance. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm where I am. And it feels good. And I would encourage you to get here because, I get a lot of comments. And, the people that call me and write me are smart people. They're spiritual people. And, man, we got folks with a lot of problems. But often when I share with them what could be the cause of it, they don't want to hear it. So sometimes you go to the doctor and he says, well, you got to quit eating bread and lose some weight. You don't want to hear that either, but you either do it or you die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. The same kind of thing. We've got to take control of our lives. We've got to take control of our minds. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. And if you don't do your thinking for you, there's plenty of entities out there that will be glad to do it for you. I'm here to teach you to unwind your mind. I'm here to teach you to unindoctrinate yourself. I'm here to teach you to guide your own spirit and guide your own thoughts. Master your own ascension. Master your own mind. And be your own guru. And once you really get you down, then you can start being good to me too, and we can all be excellent. to each other.